how do we get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah is already close to us, isn't he? It says, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. He's already close to us. He says, I'm closer to you than you juggling up him. So how do we get closer to him? By just remembering his name. Just repeating the name Allah, Allah, Allah all the time. How do we get close to him? So what happens when we repeatedly say Allah, Allah, Allah on our qalb, on our spiritual qalb, spiritual heart? What happens to the heart? And it purifies, isn't it? It cleans.
The both things, the tiny dots will gone away, and you have a new life.
Yeah. So every time we do something wrong, a black dot appears on our qalb. This is what we learn from the hadith back. So the aim of the zikr is to purify the heart. So once we purify the heart, we touched on this last week. So when we purify the heart, what kind of things are we purifying it from? This is all the, jealousy, hasad, love for dunya, all the bad things that drive us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? Right? So once we got rid of all these things, what happens after that? Once we got rid of all the bad things, bad qualities like, love for, there's nothing wrong having desire for dunya, but it has to be limited, isn't it, to a certain extent, up to the point where we have the need for it. So what happens when you remove all these bad qualities from us? What happens after that? So then when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for salah, namaz, and then we do all the other actions in terms of how we conduct ourselves with other people, our morals become more defined, our morals, akhlaq, they become a lot more refined. We tend to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every action more clearly. So when we read namaz, our batin is, our inner self is clean, purified, and then we concentrate in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much better. Yeah. And what's the purpose of shaitan? And again, is to distract us, isn't it? So any form of worship we do, shaitan's purpose is to distract us. And what's the purpose of the nafs? Is to distract us from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can understand why shaitan wants to do that, but why would nafs want to do that? Why would nafs want to distract us from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Shaitans, we know from the Quran that shaitan said that shaitan, his intention is clear from the Quran. But nafs, why would nafs want to do something like that? Why would nafs want, when we focus on the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nafs also wants to distract us away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nafs ammara especially. So why would the nafs want to do that? What's in it for nafs? What's in it for nafs?
Nafs wants us to do what it wants. So it wants to do the world and things.
If you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, You could worship and also do worldly things. So why is the nafs want to be?
The more you worship, the less power the nafs starts to get. And then you just
Because weaker, is that what you're saying? But did he not think that if we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he becomes weaker, as you said, which is right, and he's not going to be able to get what he wants from the dunya as well. Because if somebody who enjoys worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hardly going to go and involve himself in the musical instruments or anything that Islam forbids, isn't it? What Islam forbids is the very thing that the nafs enjoys, isn't it? So he's feeling insecure that if this person, if I allow him to carry on doing worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he's going to be driven away from the very things that I enjoy. And he's going to focus on things that I dislike. So he's being proactive and being clever, isn't it? So are these two, the nafs and the shaitan, are they visible? Can we see them? And how difficult is it to fight an invisible enemy? I mean, they are an enemy, aren't they? At the end of the day. Because one of them is clear enemy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he is your enemy, watch out for him, which is shaitan. But the nafs, he doesn't think that he's our enemy. He thinks that what he's doing is in the best interest of us. He thinks his argument is that enjoyment in the dunya is the best thing. Because we don't know what's going to happen after we die. It doesn't say, we don't know what's going to happen after we die. But at least whilst you're here in this dunya, enjoy yourself. Because you don't live twice. Well, that's his argument, that's his argument. So from his point of view, he thinks he's right. He thinks in our own interest. And when you have that enemy, it's very difficult to fight against that sort of enemy that thinks that deep down in his heart, when his own mind, whichever mind or heart you could call it, he thinks that he's doing everything to protect us, to protect itself and protect us. But it's also, he doesn't want to accept the facts. And the facts are that there are people who have lived this dunya and they died. They don't live forever. And the facts are that everything is created for a purpose. And he doesn't think that his creation is for a purpose. He keeps on making us believe that I'm only here in this dunya once, and once I die, that's the end of it. That's what the nafsi Ammara thinks. I'm not going to be resurrected. He doesn't want to think, it can't make itself think that that how can somebody who perishes can be resurrected again second time. That's the mindset of the nafsi Ammara. It doesn't use any logic in it. It doesn't think that how did the human race start? The one who started from the beginning, from nothing at all, how difficult would it be for him to start again from something something that existed? Is it easier to create from nothing, or easier to create from something that is already been created? Which one's easier? It's easier to create from something that's already in place, isn't it? So, but it doesn't use common sense. It's so what does that show to us? What does that show to us about the state of the nafs?
It's like a child.
Hmm?
It's like a child.
That's close. He's acting like a child, yes. It's close. But when somebody is madly and deeply in love with something, does it use that? Does a person or does the thing who's madly and deeply in love with something, does it find, can you try and get logic into their head? You can't really get any logic into the person who is madly in love with something. So that shows us, because that person is like a child, and he's not listening to you. You try and tell him from every angle, he's not listening to you. So that shows us that he is deeply and madly in love with this dunya and everything that is in this dunya. And he loves it and everything, he enjoys everything about it. And any common sense that you tell him, it says, oh yes, that makes sense, and then you ask him again. It's as if you never, it's as if he never heard you. It just seems like it goes in from one ear and comes out from the other. Does that make sense? Because that shows that the nafs is madly and deeply in love with this dunya, and it defies all the logic. Because the logic clearly says that if something can be created from nothing, and if you say to him that yes, you'll be recreated, and he says, no, I can't be recreated. When I'm turning into dust, how can I be recreated again? Because it's not accepting any logic. So what do you do with somebody who is madly and deeply in love with something? What do you do with that person? What do you do with that person who's madly and deeply in love with that person? What do you do? That's what the nafs is. Then what you do then is you find out about the nafs. You research more into it. But the good thing about us doing zikr is that the research is already done by people from the awliya of the past. They've already done the research and they worked out the solution to the nafs who is madly and deeply in love with the dunya. They worked out and made it easier for us. So what they said is that in order to deal with the nafs is to, because what they've done is they've worked out where the point of the nafs is in our body. In our body, they worked it out and said this is the point where the nafs exists. The central point of our nafs, the central point of the nafs in our body. So, we're fortunate that they've done the hard work. And they said, okay, in order to deal with somebody who's madly and deeply in love with somebody, is there a point in your body there, in your head? That's where it exists. And one way to deal with him is to do zikr on it. Do the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it. Abundantly zikr. Not just a normal, not just a zikr of any type, zikr from somebody who's already awakened that point in our body, awakened with the zikr. So the hard work is done for me. The other option, which a lot of people do, vast majority of people do, is they force themselves into doing things against its wishes, which is very hard way, which is the hardest way. This is hard as well, doing zikr on it, because once it awakens, when you keep on doing zikr on it, it brings in even more challenges. It doesn't give up easily. It just does not give in easily. When you're doing zikr, nafs is the hardest one to deal with of all the lataif. Nafs is the hardest one. From all the lataif, nafs is the hardest one to do, to revive, to do zikr on. It's easy to do zikr when you just think about that, but it's very difficult. Very difficult. Once it becomes, even when you keep on doing zikr for length of time, when it becomes when the dirt goes on it again, it becomes very hard to clean it again. Because when it becomes empowered again, it puts all sorts of different obstacles in the way, in your way from trying to do zikr on it. It will just put your mind into something else. You start thinking about other things. And you can't describe what it does when it starts. When you start feeling, you can start feeling, you don't feel heat in it. You don't feel the heat in it. It affects your eyesight. Your eyesight starts affecting with it. When you do zikr on it, you start feeling something, your eyesight becomes affected. Your memory, it affects your memory. So these are the things that it attacks, to disillusion you, to dishearten you. Because you see, once these are the things that it affects you. It's got really, really strong power. It's got a really, really strong grip on our system. The nafs has a very, very strong grip on our system. And once you start doing zikr on it, your eyesight starts, when you start reading something, you can't see the words properly. Your memory becomes affected with it as well. And then you start becoming, it starts making you feel insecure, or you're losing something. You're doing this, or you're losing. So the zikr is not good. These are the very vicious attacks it does. But when it does start doing zikr, next level is even worse. You can't describe it, the next level. But when it becomes stronger, when it becomes, light in it, and the kind of things it does, it's amazing. Once you go past that point, and then it becomes light inside, the nur that enters the nafs. And that's when you start doing amazing things. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore about 8-9 times in Surah Shams, and said that the one who purified themselves, the nafs, has succeeded. So once that is purified, because when your lataif, your other lataif, your qalb, they have issues on them, because you purify them, then things build up on them. Because we live in a dunya. The dunya is full of issues. And it's easy to clean. You don't feel that much in them. maybe a little bit pain here and there, but none of them stop you from doing zikr on them. Even the sound of that doesn't stop you from it. The nafs is the one that, the moment you start doing zikr on them and it has brings some issues on it, that's when the challenge comes in. It doesn't allow you to clean itself even second time again. It's amazing. And it's the most difficult lata'if to clean. Nafs is the most difficult one to clean. Sometimes you will sleep and shaitan comes in. Because this is friends with shaitan. You wake up in the morning and everything is shaking. Everything's shaking. You can't even stop it. So it makes you feel insecure and say, oh, what have you done here? You can't even, you're not able to go to work because you're not going to, it's just dizziness, you can't, and it's not going away. These are things that it does. Nafs is a very, very powerful part. Nafs is a very, very, very difficult lata'if to clean. Very difficult. That's the one I found difficult to deal with. So you wake up in the morning, you can sleep and you're okay. You wake up in the morning, maybe you picked up a slab, shaitan's coming out at night time. And you wake up in the morning, or you did something before you went to sleep, and then it's building up on the nafs, and when you wake up in the morning, and it's just, you can't stand up. Because everything is, you're feeling everything is moving under your feet. And then the negative thought starts coming into your mind. See, this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا نَبْلُغَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. All these thoughts start coming to your mind. And then, because you see, the istiqamah only comes with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The istiqamah, the steadfastness, only comes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you see, there's a scheme the shaitan does, and the nafs does, there's a plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater, more powerful. And then that is used to come out. It's okay. Fine. Very big. That's it. But it doesn't last long. So you keep on doing zikr on it. You keep on doing zikr on it. It's changing it to next level. So as it changes to, because you see, because it doesn't want to go to the next level. It doesn't want to go to the next level, it wants to stop there. But when you give in, when you become scared, at that point when everything's shaking under your feet, because this is what I'm saying, this is how powerful the nafs is. And it's putting all sorts of thoughts in it. And you've got a decision to make whether to stop doing zikr or keep doing zikr. Because this is now a test. And when you keep on doing zikr, and eventually you'll find that there are thoughts coming out of your system now. Because it wasn't. And then everything's back to normal, everything's okay after that. You don't have dizziness. But that is the point where you've got to make a decision whether you want to continue or you want to stop. Because that's how powerful, how much strength the nafs has. And none of this happens without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody could tread this path because it's so difficult path. So difficult path that nobody could walk on this path without the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you're dealing with two invisible enemies, they're very powerful enemies. The third one is dunya itself. How can you fight them? So don't give up, keep going. Because dunya is going to enter, that's guaranteed, 100%. And the shortest time for us is the dunya of our our existence. If you think about it, our soul was created before we came to the dunya. And we find that from God. And then Allah says, Alastu bi Rabbi, and says, Qalu Bala. So this conversation that's mentioned in the Quran with the Ruh, it took place, only Allah knows best, hundreds and thousands of years maybe, before we came to this dunya. And there's many, many souls that are still waiting in the queue to come to this dunya. Who knows how long? The length of this dunya maybe. Could be thousands of years, only Allah knows best. And Allah Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam knows best. And then we come to this dunya, we spend 70, 80 years, average of 70 years, and then we die. Then we spend hundreds and thousands of years inside Alam al-Barzakh. That's the stage where we're waiting for the day of judgment. That's the period between we die and the day of judgment. That could be, you can imagine as the Adam Islam and all the people that were in that time, thousands of years ago, they're still waiting in the stage of Barzakh. And that's 1,000 years, and we can be in there until the last person is born and the day of Qiyamah. And then the day of Qiyamah comes, the day of Judgment Day, and that could be one day of that time. One day of that time is equivalent to 50,000 years of dunya. So that could be thousands of years as well. And then finally, there's two ways left. This is paradise, Jannah, or hell, Jahannam. And that is never ending. So I'm giving you this scenario. What do you read from these stages that we go through? Which stage is the most important stage of all the stages I've told you? Which stages? The first one is the Arwah, where we spend time before we were born. The second is Dunya. Third is Barzakh. Fourth is Qiyamah. Fifth is Jannah and Jahannam. Which is the most important point of all of these? Which stage is the most important?
Jannah.
Important in terms of, well, Jannah, to live in it is important, but I'm saying what stage is crucial, that we need to watch out for, that we need to be careful, we need to watch out. That's what I mean. Which stage requires a lot of attention, awareness. Which stage is the crucial one? Dunya. Dunya is the crucial one, isn't it? Because when you die, whatever happens to you after you die, and what kind of treatment you're going to get after you die, is based on what you've done in this dunya. So whatever treatment you get in the Qiyamah is based on what you've done in dunya. So whatever treatment you get when you in stage or final stage comes down to dunya. Dunya is the crucial stage, isn't it? And which is the shortest time of all the different stages? Which is the shortest time? Dunya is the shortest time, isn't it? I'm sorry, what are you looking for? Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? Dunya is the shortest time. How amazing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's given us a very short time to determine the longest time ever that we're going to spend. But we find it difficult. When we go to work, we go to work for 8 hours, and then for 8 hours, so let's say there's 24 hours in a day. So 16 hours isn't it to ourselves? Is that 16 hours? After we go to work. And we work, 8-hour work is very, very difficult. But how do we spend those 8 hours at work? Or how do we motivate ourselves to do those 8 hours at work? You look at it and say, hang on a second, if I spend 8 hours here working, I've got 16 hours after that, and I could enjoy it. And that's 16 hours. But we are talking about thousands of years, just for the sake of 70 years. If you look at it from that angle. And even of those 70 years, how many years do we really, really have on this earth if we take everything away? We spend some of the vast majority of the time we spend sleeping. Vast majority of the time. Half of that is spent sleeping, isn't it? And then you've got eating. And then you've got to take into account the time we spend in the toilet, the time we spend at work. We only got really, if you think about up to 70 years, and then you don't of 10 years or first 10 years, at least first 10 years of your life, you don't know your surroundings anyway. You're oblivious to your surroundings. You're too young to know what's going on around you, isn't it? Yeah? So if you take away 10 years of your first years, minimum 10 years, some of them reach 15, 20 years and they don't realize what they know. So minimum 10 years, you don't know what you're doing. Oblivious to your surroundings. We were the same like Islam. So Islam's not only one, we were the same when we were his age. And then you hit 65 or 60, 65 maybe about 65. A lot of people, and some people know what they're doing, a lot of them, have issues, physically, health issues. So really, if you, of the 70 years, you can take minimum 15 years of that. Maybe you've got 50, 55 years. Half of that is spent, going to school and college and university. So you don't really have that much time. But how nafs is, and shaitan has brainwashed us into forgetting about the major part of our life that we're going to spend. So really, for us to try and focus, stay focused. Don't forget that it's important that we need to live in this dunya. You can't say, I'm going to spend all my time doing zikr and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and forget this dunya. You can't do that. You need to find a balance. Dunya and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like I said to you many times, it's like 4 wheels in a car. And the car, it's like the wheels of the dunya, the car is you. Is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can't say that I don't want wheels. I'm just going to have the car. This is not going to work. You have to have balance between the both. So really, to keep a focus is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult because of the influence that we have around us, negative influences from our friends, or people that we associate with, the family, and everything else. That's the biggest influence that we have in our life that keeps on distracting us.